Hey, I'm Ebony Sojourner Cawthorn. My artist name is Ebony Sojourner. I am born and raised in New York, and I'm also a New York-based artist. I am an indie filmmaker. Also, I am a media storytelling teaching artist for youth and arts education. I just got accepted to NYU for the Masters of Educational Leadership in Politics and Advocacy because I want to continue down the nonprofit sector and continue working with youth and arts education, and just continue down that realm, simultaneously working in film and TV industry.
How are you considering 2020, and how does it differ from how you expected 2020 to go?
Right now, I'm fine, but if you would have asked me this a couple months ago, I would have been like, not the best. If we were going to talk about 2020, the pandemic and all that, but as an artist, it was really hard for me to not be able to create, and also not be able to be with the youth that I was engaged with and help them create art. So I've never dealt with like depression before or like anxiety. So that 2020 definitely brought those things into my life, which I didn't also enjoy, didn't know how to handle. I lost my grandmother at the end of 2020. And then, it was just a lot, emotionally, mentally, trying to figure out if I was gonna, I was applying to grad school and, dealing with like imposter syndrome. Also, because being a Black woman, it's like, dang, am I good enough?
And a lot has changed for you personally. Professionally, has a lot changed? I know that you worked with nonprofits and stuff. Has that kind of sort of continued, I guess, over Zoom or anything? Or what have you kind of stayed doing, I guess, to keep your mind off of everything else, if anything?
With the pandemic and everything, it put a halt to the in-person learning that we were doing with the nonprofit and the kids. But, we transitioned to Zoom classes and such. But then we also realized that they're doing, Zoom Monday through Friday with their regular school classes. So we kind of like was realizing and also implementing mental health classes and workshops for them, and also for the parents, because we realized, the parents are now, they're with their kids more so than they were before. We did a summer arts program, which was actually really great. It was actually my first time teaching, because prior I was just more so like a staff member instead of like actual like teaching artist. So that was really fun, teaching, photography and other like storytelling skills and techniques with the kids. And then in September of 2020, I began directing and producing my web series with a fellow U.S. School of the Arts alumni. So that was actually helped jumpstart like the creative juices, was that project. And I'm so forever grateful to Hasia Muhammad to bring me onto that project, because I was just wobbling. That really jump started to like push me forward into like the directing mode. So that was great. So that kind of like rejuvenated me as an artist.
If 2020 were just a normal year, no pandemic, I want to say no, protests and everything, if all of that were just not there, do you think you would be in the same position?
I think it's interesting that you brought up the protest, because that kind of influenced the themes that I was bringing to the kids for the summer arts programming. So I guess if it wasn't what 2020 was of what we experienced, it probably would have been like simple, like photography. We'll talk about like maybe body image or self-esteem, the things we would have like talked about, or like, social media. But with those protests, with the racial injustice, we actually like purposely brought those themes to the kids and was like, here it is. How are you feeling? Are you going to protest? Are you signing petitions? Like, what are you doing? Or if you're not, why? So I think that those protests and the racial injustice, what's happening in our world, really influenced my teaching. Grad school, I don't know. I think I always knew I wanted to do grad school a couple of years after undergrad. I was working. I was working at a HBO TV show at the time when I applied, and I was just, I'm a planner, so I was already thinking ahead of like, okay, if I start next year, I'm already going head first, thinking like I'm not gonna do TV or film jobs. So I think everything would have rounded out about the same, but I feel I had more sense of urgency with everything though, because the web series deals with racial bias and injustices and police brutality. sexual assault and everything. So I think everything had a little more prominence because of just how 2020 rounded out.
You touched on social media with the kids. How active, I mean, I know because I follow you, but how active were you and how effective do you think it is, you as a Black woman, to share these things on social media, and how much of an impact do you think it's actually making?
I don't have that large of a following. So it's more so, to me, it's just, again, it's like using the platform that I have. And to me, also, social media is just something to express myself. If I see something that, is focusing on, a Black artist or an educator or like Black art, Black works, literature, whatever, like I'm gonna post about it. Beautiful Black bodies and just Black joy. Like Ebony's gonna be posting a lot about Black life and human nature. And that's just what I do. That's what I am. And that's what I represent.
I mean, I feel like you purposefully and intentionally surround yourself with people that care about the same things you care about, love you for who you are, all these other things. But have you, in this past year, kind of looked at someone and been like, you're not the person that I expected you to be in this sort of environment? And have you cut anyone out or felt like it was a performative sort of activism?
I would just keep tabs on people. So like, example, there would be a group of people that I used to hang out with, white people that in my same age group, and we used to work at this particular place, and come to find out some of them were Trump supporters. Initially, I'm obviously hurt by that. I'm not gonna hold it against you that if you're a Republican. Then come to find out if you're a Trump supporter, to me that lowers you in my mind's eye. I'm not the type of people that's gonna automatically unfriend them or unfollow. I wanna keep tabs on you. I wanna see what you're posting. I wanna see your rhetoric. I wanna see, how you're voicing your opinions, because I wanna know the opposition. Even one person that, I really cared about, this older gentleman, he had posted something about Trump, and I was like, I had the time. I had the time that day. I was like, I'm gonna reply back on Facebook, because why not? And it was more for like a tit for tat. It didn't get too crazy or like abusive, but it was still like, I just had the time that day, and I was like, what's really good? But like those people, I don't talk to them. I don't check up on them. I may send them like a happy birthday. It's more so just seeing like how the other half is living. That's just me as a person. Like I know my mom's like, oh, I'll just straight, delete them. I'm gonna follow. I'm like, nah. I want to really know what's really going through your head. Like, how are you really analyzing? If we're looking at the same situation, how are we analyzing it, and why are we ending up on two different sides?
And I guess on the other side, how are you, because we talked a lot about allyship and people really being allies in our community as a Black community, and then as well as like LGBT and whatever. How do you expect people that are Black Lives Matter allies to move forward and move past the reading one book, White Fragility, and being actual activists and allies? And what are you looking for, and I guess expecting moving forward? Because you and I talked about the fact that it's not our job so much as it is others to educate themselves.
I have no problem sharing this story, but so last summer was actually when, I don't know if you remember this email, but our School of the Arts, sent out an email basically saying how we stand up to racial injustice, we stand with our Black faculty, whatever. And I was reading this email, and I was just like, I call BS on the whole thing. I love our school. I'm appreciative that I was accepted. I've learned so much, what have you. But when I got that email, I was too livid, and it really hit me different. And I wrote a letter. I wrote a letter to the chancellor. I don't appreciate this, like we said, this performative allyship. It's feeling very fake and very phony to me, where I've experienced racial injustice on campus.
Right.
From students, from faculty members, and I'm just like, you're saying this, but it's not matching up to what you're saying. Your actions is not matching up to what the words. So I sent the email, and I remember I was reading it to my mother, And I had read it to another alumni from the dance school. And I had read it like a couple times to each person. And then about the fourth time I read it, I just broke down because it was maybe, I want to say maybe June or July. And so we had all this starting in March. And so I think it was just all the weight just collapsing on me because when I was dealing with all these like heavy emotions and everything that was happening, I just went numb. I wasn't even processing the trauma. It was more so like okay, I know what's happening, but I have to keep on going. Like I can't,
right.
Whatever. And so I think that was literally the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, I've had it with this performative allyship, and especially it hurt. I think it hurt more so because it was like from the school that really shaped me and molded me as an artist, as a young creative, where I really felt like I was finding my voice as a Black artist. And it was like, this is what y'all are giving me. This is what y'all have said, but it's not what I've faced as a reality. So what I asked in my letter and what I've asked before was, actionable, tangible steps. We're saying that we're hearing or we're trying to understand, the Black artists and students, but it's like, where are these platforms? Where are y'all giving the time for us to talk about our grievances? And also, if we could talk about the faculty, like I remember they released the faculty list for each school, and I went through the film school and I counted on one hand the people of color faculty out of the 20 plus faculty. And I'm like, this is nothing's matching up to what you're saying to me in this very nice email. So I just honestly just want tangible items that is, faculty that reflects the student body, curriculum that reflects the student body. I wrote in my letter that I was saying, I think it's funny how, I phrased it better than that, but paraphrasing, I say, I think it's funny how, the Black curriculum or, classes is seen as electives and not main courses of study. We have time for the Coen brothers, but we don't have time for Michaud, who was the first Black filmmaker, director. Mm-hmm. So it's not adding up to me. So it's just like simple. To me, those things are simple. How do we implement, we're even talking about Black, but, Asians, Latinos, Indigenous people, all of that, they all had input and shaped and molded the film and TV industry. But it's not reflected in the curriculum. It's not reflected in the staff. It's not reflected in the faculty. And I also noted that why is majority of the staff that I see on campus African Americans, but not in higher positions of authority or, faculty?
I think I even remember in orientation, somebody asked, and it was probably you, me, or one of the other Black girls in our class, because there's only 5, that asked something about, why isn't there representation, or is there going to be a class about, Black filmmaking, something like that. And it didn't click for me until 4th year when that question was never answered, or that question was never followed up on. And it's not just UNCSA, obviously, it's everywhere. And it's not just the South, it's the North, it's the West, it's everywhere. But what are you expecting to continue to do? What are you taking with you from 2020? Like if you had to look back in 10 years, and I know that as we get older, we kind of hold ourselves differently and we think of the past differently. What are you for sure going to take with you from 2020, be it the BLM movement or something from the pandemic that will change you no matter what?
Knowing how to better handle like creativity, because to me, creativity it looks many different ways. It wears many different hats. So for me, when I felt like I couldn't be in person with the kids, or I couldn't be straight up shooting or doing dance videos or what have you, or making a short film, I felt diminished in my capacity as a creative. But moving forward, I know that my mind was still churning out many different stories. Like my mind was still like figuring out how, how I could shape the story or who I could collaborate with. So, and that, reaches all the different places in my life, where it's like working in the nonprofit, as a teaching artist, in my personal life as a creative, but just knowing that creativity takes many different shapes, and to just basically ride that wave. So I think I was really hard on myself. Like, no one else was telling me that I was a bad artist but me. So I think it was more so being giving myself grace is something that definitely taking away from 2020 and moving forward. It's giving myself grace and knowing that creativity looks different. It was like that big thing when we were first stuck at home, is like how to be productive or how to maintain productivity. But it's like, why are we such a mindset to always be on the go, always on call, always ready to respond to somebody, when it's like, no, I need to take time for myself. And also being productive takes different forms as well. Like, just because I'm not like on the computer typing or writing the greatest manifesto, like someone was saying, like during the Spanish flu or whatever other pandemic that happened years ago, some big writer wrote a very famous book. And it's like, okay, that worked for him, but that doesn't have to work for you. Like, productivity could be you, setting time out, doing something, doing meditation, doing yoga, taking a nice walk, and that helps you create, or, being purposeful in your time management, not always having to be on the go, or, not always having to be responsive to people. Because if you can't show up for people if you're not even here for yourself yet. Like, you can't, the saying is, you can't pour from an empty glass. So you have to, give to yourself, and then if you choose to, be able to give to others. And to me, that's
I like that.
Purposeful and more impactful, because you can't run on E all the time. You're going to crash and burn.
I love that so much. Is there anything else you want to touch on? Because that's really all the questions I had.
No, I mean, these were like really great and thought-provoking questions. Like, oh wow. No, I think what we talked about is like a good like starter conversation.
Well, thank you. Love you.
Love you too. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.